Hey guys, it's Mr. Harper Smith. We're going to talk a little bit today more about the quadratic formula. Remember, the quadratic formula is opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay. Now, the cool thing with the quadratic formula is you're able to take any formula or any equation, I should say, you can plug it in. So in this case, we plug in our numbers, we plug in the b, so opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 25, minus 4 times a times c is 16, all over 2a, which is 2. We can simplify that, and that's going to give us negative 5 plus or minus 3 over 2. I'm going to put both these over 2. You'll see why in a sec. Okay, I just split up the equation. We can do that. All right, so this negative 5 over 2 is negative 2.5, which is about right there. And now we're saying add or subtract 1.5. So if we go 1.5 this way, it gets us to this negative 1. If we go 1.5 this way, it gets us to negative 4. So that 1.5 is right in the middle. Now, the interesting thing is, no matter what equation you ever go with or you use, that is a quadratic, right between those two x-intercepts is what we call the axis of symmetry. Okay, so this line right here that comes up is called the axis of symmetry. That is right where the two sides are mirrored of each other. Okay, they're the same on either side of that line. They're just flipped. So quite often we'll ask, well, what is the axis of symmetry? In this case, it is the equation. What is this? Negative 2.5. So that's the line x equals negative 2.5. Okay, that's what that line is. Now I might ask you, or someone might ask you, well, what's the lowest point on that line? The lowest point on that line right here is right on that axis of symmetry. How do we find that? Well, we take that negative 2.5 and we plug it into the equation that we're using. All right, so in this case, we're using x squared plus 5x plus 4. So I'd plug in the negative 2.5. My calculator turned on. There we go. All right. So we plug in the negative 2.5 squared plus 5 times negative 2.5 plus 4. We get negative 2.25. Okay. And if we look, that is right where it's at. It's right about negative 2.25, somewhere right in there. So what is the lowest point? The lowest point on this graph is negative 2.5, comma, negative 2.25. That is the lowest point on the graph. That is our vertex point. Okay, this is called the vertex. And this x equals negative 2.5 is called my axis of symmetry. Okay, axis of symmetry and the vertex. Might want to write that down in your notes real quick. Pause the video to do that. All right, you should have it in your notes. Let's try another one. Okay. There you go. Let's try this equation right here. What is the vertex? Is what we want to find out. What is this lowest point? You can see it's not really on any line. It might be on this dotted, this thinner line right here, might be slightly off. We really don't know. That's what we're going to try to find out right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the quadratic formula, opposite b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now remember that this negative b over 2a part, that tells me right in the middle. Then you add to get to the 4 and you subtract to get to the negative 1. Well, in this case, I really don't care about the negative 4 or the negative 1. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to get rid of that whole square root piece. I'm just going to do negative b over 2a. So that's going to tell me right where the middle is. That's all that I care about. I just care where's the middle. So negative b over 2a. So negative 3 over 2 times a. A is 1, 2 times 1. Well, negative 3 over 2, negative 3 over 2 negative would be positive 3/2 gives me 1.5. So this axis of symmetry for this equation is sure enough that faint line right there that I now have highlighted in red. Cool, but what is the y value? What is the lowest point? Well, I type it into my calculator in the whole equation. So instead of using x, I use 1.5. I get negative 6.25. So the lowest point on this line is 1.5, comma, negative 6.25. That is the lowest point. That is the vertex of this parabola. Okay, the line is called a parabola when it's shaped like this. And the lowest point is 1.5, comma, negative 6.25. Cool. Let's do one more all together. No, even better. I want you to pause the video real quick and try this one on your own. Okay. I want you to figure out what is that vertex down there. It looks like it's kind of on a line. It might not be right on a line. I want you to figure it out. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, you should pause the video. You should have your answer by now. Now remember, I'm going to use that equation negative b over 2a, which is just a variation of the quadratic formula. Okay, it's nothing new. That's what we've been using. So I'm going to take my b, which is negative 2. So negative 2 over 2 times 1 is just 2. So that gives me 2 over 2, which is just 1. Awesome. So my x value is 1. Great. That makes it easy. So right here, bloop, I've got my 1. Now I need to figure out what is the y value. So I'm going to take a 1 and plug it into my x values here. I'm going to plug in a 1, plug in a 1. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm yawning. Let's see here. Let me plug it into my handy dandy calculator. Yeah, so I've got negative 16 plus 32 minus 19. That's just what happens when you plug in 1. No, it's not. What am I talking about? That's the wrong equation. All right. 1 squared is 1. Minus 2 times 1 is 2 minus 8. Gives me negative 9. So the lowest spot on this graph is 1, comma, negative 9. Ta-da! That's the lowest spot. That is the vertex. Remember that word, vertex. Cool. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask your math teacher. If you feel pretty confident about it, cool. Give your assignment a try. Good luck, guys.